this video, I discuss how retirees spend more to save money. Coming up next on Holy Schmidt.
Holy Schmidt!
One of the big differences between the working years and the retirement years is that in retirement, retirees are time rich. This creates problems because people left untrained spend money backwards. They buy a lot of little things when they should be spending their money on big things that make a difference. This means that they have more time than money at least part of every week or two. They spend time doing things that are pretty unhealthy. And there are only so many free things you can do outside of watching television. Make phone calls to people you love, play cards, go for walks in parks, etc. But the list is somewhat limited. At some point, the retiree needs to spend money. They go to their favorite store and they roam the aisles. And for those of you who don't know how stores are arranged, at eye level are all of the things that people buy most. So if they're going there just to window shop, they will come home with something or many somethings as the case may be, particularly if you're shopping on or for a product that has add-on sales. If you buy a model, right next to the model is glue and paint and an airbrush for $150 or $200 if you want to become a great modeler. Also, psychologically, people spend more money when they receive a paycheck or a retirement check than at the end of that same period. Why? Because they feel like they have excess cash when the funds arrive in their checking account, and they feel the pressure of not having money in the checking account at the end of the period. Put all of these elements together and a retiree is at risk of buying things that they don't really even need or want on payday or shortly thereafter, and not being able to afford the things that they actually need near the end of the cycle. Now, why do people spend money on things that they don't need or want? It's not logical, because sometimes it's not the things that they're purchasing, but the feeling they get when they shop. It makes them feel included. It makes them feel excited. It gives them a sense of freedom. The list goes on and on. Shopping satisfies a very real human need. By the way, if your drawers at home are overflowing with stuff, this may be you. If you have 2 or 3 of the same thing in those drawers, this is probably you. So how can you break the cycle? Well, first you need to understand that it is in fact a cycle. Buying things is the human condition. We enjoy doing it. You can direct your funds away from the small things that you buy that make you feel good onto a few larger things that actually not only make you feel good, but are quite productive for your life. Let's talk about how to stop the urge to buy things that you don't need or want. Start off by using the grocery list method. There's lore in the Schmidt household about my great-grandfather. The lore is that one day his wife, my great-grandmother, gave him $20 to go buy groceries. She didn't give him a list, she just told him what she needed. He didn't buy what she told him to buy. In fact, he came home with grocery bags filled with Twinkies. Earlier that day, my grandfather saw an advertisement for Twinkies on the Howdy Doody show. At least that's what I'm told. And it showed the clown on the show with a school lunchbox filled with Twinkies. By the way, I actually found that segment of the Howdy Doody show. It's right here on YouTube. I put a link in the description if you want to see exactly what I'm talking about. But I digress. Back to the story. Don't get me wrong, most of us have enjoyed a Twinkie at one point or another in our lives. Not particularly good for you, but totally satisfying. But not 75 Twinkies. When that happens, it tends to upset your spouse. From what I'm told, he had to sleep on the couch for the next 2 weeks until payday came around again. If the story is actually true, I have some doubts. Perhaps my father told me the story at the time to get me to stop one type of spending behavior and focus on another. Who knows? The point is, when you go to a grocery store, what are you always told? Shop with a list and don't go hungry. Why? Because if you don't, you'll come home with a basket full of snack cakes. What's the other thing you do when you shop with a list? You check your inventory. You don't go to the grocery store and buy ketchup when you have 2 or 3 bottles of ketchup back home. You wouldn't do that any more than you would buy a drill when you have 2 or 3 drills in the garage. So shopping with a list helps you focus on what you actually need, not what happens to be at eye level as you roam through the aisles. Now, the other thing we're told when shopping for groceries is don't shop when you're hungry. Consider being hungry the equivalent of payday. When you haven't shopped in a while and payday comes along, you have what my mother calls the spendies. People don't think this is true, and it may not be true for you, but it might be true for someone you know. Try this. Go onto Google and search how many lottery winners, and see what comes in the auto drop-down option below. You would think that the autofill has how many lottery winners are there, or how many lottery winners are quick picks, or how many lottery winners were there last week. But the top search result, the number one search result, is how many lottery winners go broke. And the answer is, by the way, 70%. 70% of the lottery winners lose all of their money within 7 years. 7 out of 10 go broke. Now, why is that? Because they have the spendies. So you need to build a buffer so that you always have funds available so that when payday rolls around, you don't suddenly run out and get the things that you felt like you needed to get a couple of days earlier and a bit more. You need to start saving, and the best rule of thumb for this is have at some point 3 to 6 months worth of your expenses in your savings account. By the way, that's a much larger buffer than you actually need to deal with this particular issue. Still great advice, but the buffer you need is about a week or two of extra cash on hand so that you don't constantly feel the need to go out and buy things when the check arrives. Once you get your spending under control, we'll call it sports spending. Once you get your sports spending under control, then you need to deal with the original problem that we talked about, which is time. You're no longer going to fill your time with useless spending. At this time in your life, you have a lot of time on a day-to-day basis, but you have less years ahead. So you want to maximize those years, and watching soap operas all day is not the way to do it. And finally, the reason we're here. Once we've actually taken the funds and redirected them away from the bad spending, now it's time to direct them to good spending, if you want to call it good spending. Let's call it different spending. And this means that you take those flows and you spend them on the one thing. Now, you've heard me talk about the one thing before. It is the one thing that you want to do for a long period of time, maybe not the rest of your life, but maybe the next few years. The one thing that you want to become really good at, or you really enjoy and you couldn't do perhaps when you were working because it took too much time. Well, now you have the time. So spending a little bit more money on getting that right will save a lot of money on the other time killer of shopping. By the way, I will tell you that retirees resist this. Why? Because their entire adult life, their one thing was work. Now, depending on your relationship with your work when you were working, you may want to just completely distance yourself from anything that takes that level of commitment. But that's a mistake. The freedom to float is not what it's cracked up to be. This one thing will be something that you thoroughly enjoy and can spend a lot of time doing every single day, or every couple of days anyway. To an outsider, it looks suspiciously the same. But to you, it's your passion, it's your hobby, it's your volunteer work. It's the thing that you wish you had done or could have done when you were younger, but just didn't have the time. It's not forever, that would be too scary, but it is for the next little while. Think of this as something you'll do over the next few years anyway. Now for me, I really enjoy helping people, so my passion is filming and publishing videos for you. Now I get really excited when I know I've made a difference in someone's life, and I see it in the comment section below. Most people are really kind in their comments, and that really drives me forward. When I see those comments, it gives me the energy to publish the next video, and the next video, and the next video. But to do my one thing right, you need a pretty decent camera, a background that supports your message, and tons of research so that you're delivering the best quality information to the viewer. So what is your one thing? That one thing that will be a game changer for you. The thing that you can spend a little bit more money on when you commit to it, and will take up a lot of your time and a lot of your spending in the window shopping part of your life. Is it travel? For a lot of people, 2/3 of the fun of travel is planning the trip. Some people plan 6 months, 8 months, 12 months in advance and get really excited every single day as they get closer and closer to the trip. And then when they go on the trip, they have a blast because they've lived that trip 20 or 30 or 40 times over the course of the last 6 months. Planning also helps you save a lot of money on hotels, on dining out, on attractions. Finding the best place to go and making fewer mistakes is what planning is all about. And the planner gets to see everybody's face light up when the plan comes together. They know that they've done a wonderful job, put in the work, and they see the results. What about golf, model building, pursuit of a college degree in philosophy? It's different for everyone, but I can promise you that just about everyone out there, if they spend time thinking about it, will come up with the one thing that they want to do for the next 10, 20, or 30 years perhaps, but certainly for the next few. And for most people, once you've discovered your one thing, it usually saves you a bunch of money. Why? Because the costs are one-time costs, usually front-loaded. Things like, for example, if it's golf, you have to pay for clubs, you have to buy shoes, you have to take golf lessons perhaps, but the more you play, the less it costs. When you amortize your clubs out over 52 games in a year, or 52 games over a few years anyway, it's a lot different than amortizing them out over 1 or 2 games. And the fact is, something like golf lessons, you get the maximum benefit from golf lessons if you go out and play regularly. In fact, you could argue if you took golf lessons and you didn't play, it wouldn't stick. So the more you play, the better you get. So it's not surprising that many retirees play golf. It gets you out of the house, it's social, it focuses the mind, it gives you exercise. All very good things, and probably another 4 or 5 items on top of that you can add to the list depending on who you are. Now, outside of the one thing, how else do you save money by spending more? Well, the obvious one is spending money to replace rather than repair something. Think about how much money you've spent repairing a car over the years. At some point, the cost of repairing that car is going to be more expensive than the monthly payments on a new automobile. What about your home's central heat and air, the air handler, the water heater, your roof? Are the dollars out more than the cost of replacement? And is there any efficiency in replacing it with a much better system, one that is more friendly on the environment and your electric bill? I've always been a little bit suspicious when someone says buy nice or buy twice. Usually they're referring to the difference between one type of item and a very expensive, extravagant alternative. But if you are at the end of an asset's useful life, replacement rather than repair might be in order. If you like this video, please make sure you click subscribe and turn on notifications so that you get alerted the next time I post a video. I post about twice a week. This is Jeff Schmidt. Thanks for watching.